Hello from second wave lockdown, everyone. As the second phase of OTH Studios has just ended, we are joined by an all-new film reviewer, Charles Finn, to analyse the good and the bad of my all-new documentary, Coronavirus Conspiracy, which is on this channel right now, and my short film sequel, The Artifact Part 2, which is also on this channel, and I hope you've all seen that already. But to begin, Charles, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your general thoughts about the studio?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Just joined and I've quite enjoyed the videos so far, and I've enjoyed a lot of the reviews and I've wanted to try and get involved, so here I am.
That's good, you're much appreciated. So, let's jump right in with the main attraction of this video, The Artifact Part 2 short film review. This release was a sequel to The Artifact Part 1, which I'm sure you all know about. A very successful film, and it's nearly at 1,000 views, so if you haven't seen it already, make sure that you do. So without any spoilers, The Artifact Part 2 carries on from the narrative of The Artifact Part 1 as we follow the Collector evading the gang and the boss who controls that gang. So, very dramatic, very suspenseful, action-packed film at nearly 10 minutes, so there's plenty of good quality content in there. So Charles, what were your overall thoughts about The Artifact Part 2 to begin?
I think it was a very good follow-on from the first one. It connects nicely, and there was an awful lot of action, and it's very visual. It's one I would rewatch many times, but I've noticed there was a heavy use of props and a heavy use of good angle shots. I think it was a very decent film.
Was there anything bad about the film which you thought could have been improved?
It was quite a long film for a short film. If there was anything bad, I would say it's quite hard to spot. It was quite a good film overall. It was well shot and it was well acted. Maybe perhaps there could be a bit more identity with the gang, sort of character to represent. But overall, it was a fantastic film.
We're always striving for representation at OTH Studios. I think the idea with the gang was that they're all an autonomous group of criminals and that we don't really gain an insight into them, and that expands the mystery and suspense and drama of the film. And that's what we were going for. Did you find that the characters you engaged with and actually cared about, did you actually care about the Collector? Did you understand that the thief was dead and actually understand what was evolving in the film?
With the main character, the Collector, you get a real sense of he's the good guy and you quickly empathise with him. In the first one, he seems a lot more of the antagonist, but whereas in this one, he seems now to be at the mercy and at the grip of this gang led by this boss. And looking at the mise en scène, the costumes of the characters and the gang, the boss, you notice that he wears glasses and they all wear black suits. It's very mysterious and it really hides their identity. It sort of comes across and shows clearly that they are the bad guy. They're the bad ones. You don't want to mess with them. Whereas the Collector, you notice that he has some more lighter colours with what he's wearing. He comes across as a bit more of an innocent bystander, maybe, perhaps. I would point out in the first one that the person fleeing from the Collector was wearing very much all black, which could indicate that he was part of the gang. I think that's a key connection between the two films.
Yeah, I'm glad that you understood the distinction between the Collector and the criminals, because, I did try to have a binary opposite with the black of the criminals, as you mentioned, and the dull greys of the Collector, so I'm glad you picked up on that. So in The Artifact Part 2, obviously we had a full musical score designed by Alfie Howell again, the same sound designer of The Artifact Part 1. The audience may have noticed that certain themes and instruments were carried over to the sequel, while retaining some of the themes and motifs designed within the first film. I think, one of the main points of discussion I had with viewers of The Artifact was that, above all else, many people liked the sound. So, Charles, do you think The Artifact Part 2, with diegetic and non-diegetic sound, do you think it lived up to its predecessor?
I certainly think it did. It showed a dramatic input into the film. I think it coincided well with what was happening in the action of the film.
So it was good.
Yes, it was good. It was fantastic.
Okay. What was your standout shot or sequence of The Artifact Part 2, would you say?
I personally feel that the best shot was when the boss and the collector are facing off. It was very well shot in that camera's set captures part of the face, so you see it as them facing off as a sort of standoff, and it really signals the climax of the film and clearly shows that there's a conflict between these two characters. In some respects, you could say that it shows the boss in a higher standing than the collector, and I think that really generates a very powerful scene.
Yeah, I mean, the location scouting for that mound, unfortunately the mound has since been knocked down, but I think we were really fortunate to find that location. As you said, it gave the boss an element of height over the thief and really demonstrated that power divide very clearly, and I think that was just a really standout location from The Artifact Part 2. So to conclude, out of 10 for The Artifact Part 2, what will it be?
Good question. Very fluent film, connected very intricately with the first one. Very good plots and development, character development as well. So I would probably give that a modest 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10, that's very generous. So, we're gonna move on to my most topical and also most recent big release. It is the Coronavirus Conspiracy documentary. Interestingly, this project was created a few months ago for my media studies A-level coursework. It's at 10 minutes long, so again, lots of good content in there, and of course it does revolve around coronavirus, government response to that. We interview a few members of the public, including a food bank manager and a member of the York Youth Parliament, but I'm really pleased with the final result. So Charles, what were your overall thoughts about this project?
The first thought that came across my mind was the fact that it was clearly shot to be a documentary, and I think that was executed and demonstrated confidently. When you were interviewing with the different people, you were clearly demonstrating how the coronavirus had affected the norm, as you put it, because you were demonstrating the 2-meter distance. That was quite a clear indication about the effects of the virus. Probably didn't have to say as much because you were showing it, and that was probably a really important shot.
We employed quite a few visual graphics throughout the documentary. At the beginning, we had the title sequence alongside the musical accompaniment, and throughout we had facts and statistics, for example, about the food bank. So were you impressed with these graphics? I think I spent quite a long time on them and was pleased with the overall result, but what did you think?
I think that the graphics in Coronavirus Conspiracy video was very good. It was dramatic. I think it was important to show that because it's illustrating the importance of the situation and the seriousness of the situation. The way that statistics was shown, as you said, during the food bank, that was very good. It wasn't difficult to see. It was very clear. Proves to show the documentary to be in dramatical video. You probably might want to show this video on news or something.
Yeah, I mean, above all, we aimed to educate the audience while creating a dramatic and suspenseful experience, and I hope we did that. And I mentioned this in the title sequence. We obviously had a musical accompaniment designed by Alfie Howell, the same sound designer of The Artifact Part 1 and The Artifact Part 2. So do you think this musical score lived up to his outstanding previous work?
First, you'd think the music came across certainly as almost like a horror film. It's like a horror film, and I suppose in a dramatic sense that is probably...
I mean, the virus is kind of like a horror film in its own way, so maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was certainly very entertaining.
We also demonstrated the presence of the virus often through prop placement. You'll notice in the opening scene, we have sanitizer bottles and masks and the danger strips all throughout the school. So yeah, I just really wanted to keep the documentary topical and relevant, and I think we succeeded in that. But at the same time, Charles, do you think there was anything we could have done better?
It would be interesting to see a third perspective, perhaps from the point of view of the schools in terms of the filming. I think it was shot very well. It wasn't too much that it distracted you from the main point of the documentary, but it was also entertaining at the same time, and that was important.
Coronavirus Conspiracy, what would you give it out of 10?
Out of 10, I would give it a 7.5.
7.5. Very generous. So, I think that is all for today, but thank you very much for joining us. And be sure to check out the projects we've just been discussing, which are in my channel right now. Thank you, Charles, and goodbye from me, and goodbye from Charles.